Everyone, and welcome to this AND session. We've got a fantastic guest for you this evening. It's Keisha Adair Swaby, and she's going to take us through her inspirational story. But before we get started, a brief introduction of who we are here at AND. I am Donna Stevenson, and I'm part of Succeed with Dyslexia, and we are so privileged to be part of the AND group. We are the adult network, and we are all about neurodiversity and dyslexia. That brings me on then to another AND member. It's the Yorkshire Rose Dyslexia Association. Hi, Pat. Pat, you're still on mute. It's so easily done, isn't it?
There we are.
Good evening, listening. Pat. Would you like to tell us a bit about the wonderful work you guys do in Yorkshire?
I'm not sure it's wonderful. I hope it is. Well, basically, we just try and support anybody who's got any issue around dyslexia, neurodiversity, or anything else. We focus a lot on children, but more and more adults are coming through. This week, my only helplines have been adult alcohol, so there's a need for everything, I think.
Yeah, brilliant. So thank you, Pat, and thank you for what you do in Yorkshire. It's really important. As is the work that Hampshire Dyslexia Association do. Good evening, Sue.
Hello, Donna. Can you see me? I can't.
We can't see you. Sorry,
No,
we can see you, but I know you're saying you can't see yourself, but we can see you.
That's great. Okay.
And we can hear you.
I can't seem to make the screen bigger. Good evening, everybody. I'm speaking to you from Poole in Dorset, and I'm chair of Hampshire Dyslexia Association and have been involved since 1994 when our 8-year-old was identified as dyslexic. We have been around for nearly 50 years and we manage a helpline. We have a bursary fund which is very popular, and we operate as a chair of an association that is looking to support people in Hampshire, Southampton, Portsmouth and the Isle of Wight. And I'd say the most common question we get asked at the moment, Donna, is my child has been screened for dyslexia at school and I've been told to get an assessment. So we're working with those parents to support them along their educational journey.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Sue. And again, fantastic work there. Really interesting to being asked a lot about assessments. And that brings me last but certainly not least to the Adult Dyslexia Association with Sue Flor, who's the manager there. Good evening, Sue.
Hello. How do I beat those two? Well, I think really
you do pretty good with the Adult
we
Dyslexia
are great,
Centre.
Actually. Although we're the Adult Dyslexia Centre, we actually cater for anybody, anyone, any age, and we've been going for about 20 years. It was set up to support children who'd grown into adults, but we seem to be supporting all ages. We do tutoring, assessments, coaching, just anything you name it. Yeah, we're the best. Yeah. And we support all over the country and outside of the country too. We had a call today actually from your area, Donna, from Wales. So
okay, yeah,
there we go.
That's it. I know you guys support all over, including beyond the UK as well. So again, thank you to ADC, the great work you do. Thank you to you all. It's really important work that you do for our community.
Donna, can I just add some latest news that's come out today? There's been a recent ruling that's come from SEN Jungle, which we all know of. A case with them, the judge has said the authority not having any money, resources, or client or assessors is not a reason not to assess. So this is something that you can raise in your own area, that you do not always have to go for a private assessment. And the authority is saying we haven't got the money. There is now a judge ruling to say that that is not a good reason.
Interesting.
Wow,
and maybe
that's really good.
Yeah, it is.
Could you share that with us in the chat box, Pat?
Yeah, I'll send you the link that I've got.
Yeah.
I'll send it. Yes, yeah, put
That
it in
would
there.
be really
And
helpful.
guys, maybe we can pick this up on one of our future sessions. It's great to hear, you know, some of the latest thinking. Which brings me on to a wonderful guest that we've got this evening. It's Keisha Adair Swaby. Keisha, as I put together your introduction, my goodness, I've got reams of paper here, and I'm sure, you know, I'm only going to touch the surface. So you are the author of Empowering Dyslexics, Blessed and Gifted, and we'll talk about that wonderful book this evening. Beyond that, as if that wasn't enough, you are an inspirational speaker, a radio presenter, film and television supporting artist, a Succeed with Dyslexia ambassador, which is brilliant, and also Goodwill ambassador for the Jamaican Dyslexia Association. And I actually love this next bit. You are one of the top 50 most influential neurodivergent women, and you were a recent finalist for Role Model of the Year at the Multicultural Business and Community Champion Awards. Wow, my goodness, what a privilege this will be, because we want to share your inspirational journey, really, Keisha, which, you know, we've just heard Pat and Sue talking about assessing children and so on, and that's for a lot of us, that's the journey into figuring out we're neurodivergent. But can you share your journey when you found out you were neurodivergent, you know, your life around dyslexia?
Yeah. Hi guys. I'm really honored to be here this evening. Yeah, my story started from Jamaica really, because I came to the UK at the age of 14, and then straight after that I went in the education system, which was a massive struggle for me because coming obviously from a new country, sunshine, different food, different everything, starting school, and you know, it was a good journey in school because I was bullied in school because of the way that I spoke. I was a new girl there as well, so everyone found it was, funny to kind of ask me to do certain things. And then I left school without a single GCSE. I didn't get any GCSEs whatsoever because of the struggle, and I didn't know at the time what was going on. And fast forward, I left the Midlands at the time and came to Manchester to live. And then I was determined to achieve my English language GCSE. So I carried on and I went to college and I achieved that. And that sort of started the learning journey really, and I've carried on and I did all the other vocational qualifications as well, and then I went into the world of working. So my first job was with the GMB union here in Manchester, and I spent 5 years there, and after that I got made redundant. Then I went straight into local government. But because at the time there was so much going on when I left school and left, doing college, I hadn't the opportunity to go to university, and that was always been a dream to achieve that. So in 2016, after spending 17 years in the corporate world, I plucked up the courage because in the workplace I had, which we'll possibly talk about later on, there was so much going on there, the way I was struggling in my work and certain things, whilst I was really excelling in other areas, there's a lot of challenges that I was going through. So when I left in 2016, I went straight into college. I remember applying to UCAS and I got unconditional, offered it like the next day, and I thought, right, this is a sign I need to go and do this. So I started a foundation degree. Past that, I went straight on to do the full degree, which is to get me a BSc. So I was doing that, still struggling with my assignments in many ways because I just wasn't sure. There's just something that was there. And I was wondering, why is it's taking me so long to do certain things, to get my research done, to get all the writing up done. Sometimes I'm overwhelmed. I don't know where to start. All those things was happening at the time. So I made an effort when I was doing my degree, the last few months of it, in the last few weeks, I took my work to the librarian, because being dyslexic, we have these things where we're so kind of ashamed. We don't want anyone to see our work because of the errors might be in there and, spelling mistakes. And funny enough, that time my laptop wasn't working. So all the spelling mistakes in my work that were there. And I took it to the lovely Leslie in the library to check my work. And I took it to her and I went back to her after she's checked it. And then she said to me after, which was the life-changing moment for me, she said, Keisha, I didn't know that you're dyslexic. And I was like, what? It was like a beam coming through that word. Then, so because I only had a few weeks left in university, I had to get everything going to get that assessment done, because as you know, it's a few £100. And they were so helpful and supportive straight away. They booked an assessment and it was done. I did that in the April, and then I got my results and left about the May. And she said, I remember the lady saying to me that assessed me, she was called Anna, and she said to me, I don't know how you get this far in your studies and everything, because you are severely dyslexic and dyspraxic. So yeah, that's the start of everything.
Amazing. How did that make you feel, Keisha, especially hearing from that professional? How have you got this far without the identification, the support, which is, just shows that's an absolute credit to you. But how did you feel on the back of that?
Well, it was finding out that I was dyslexic was liberating for me, because finally I knew what it was that was giving me all these challenges. So I kind of flipped the switch in a way, because regardless of that, I came out with a first class honours degree, not getting this score, knowing that I had it. Yeah, I came out with a first class. So imagine if I had knew that I had it all the way through my studies, the 3 years that I spent, what would happen then. But I flipped the switch because finally I knew what it was, and I owned it as my superpower. I owned it as the amazing creative things that I do and all the other things that came with it. I had a feeling of, it was mixed feelings as well, because I felt like, why did it take so long? Why did I go through the college system, the workplace, and no one is never ever picked up or anything? Whilst I was really struggling in the workplace, my work when I was working in local government, and knew the challenges that I had. I was put on special measures. All these things was going on. I had to do a task list to make sure my time, I had to prove how, the time that was taken to do a task. All those measures was put on me, and not once everyone say, let's just investigate and see what's going on with that. And yeah.
Did, I guess, like you say, as you look back then, things started to make sense. Moving forward then, after the identification, how did it change your life as you left university?
As I left university, it opened up so many doors, because finally I was able to champion the greatness of being dyslexic and kind of flip it, because as you in the Black community, there's a lot of stigma and shame that's attached to these learning differences. And I tend not to call it a learning difficulty. And all through my book, you'll see that I refer to it as a learning difference, because even if you're not neurodiverse, we all learn things differently. So yeah, that's how I see it. So that changed where I started my advocacy journey. So I'm advocating. I did TV appearance to talk about it, to share the light on it, to create more awareness, especially in the community. What I found was everyone, when I put it out there and came out as it was, everyone was coming to me and saying, what, I've been suffering for so long in silence and I didn't know anyone, and now here you are and you're doing all of these things and whatever. But what people see with dyslexic people, they see all the amazing things that we do, but we have to also showcase the challenges that we have in the background, because it's not all shiny and glittery at times.
Yeah, and I think that's such a great insight there, Keisha. So on the back of that then, talk me through, the introduction. Like I said, I was spoilt for choice when I was putting things together to introduce you. And before we went live tonight, we were just chatting about your work as a supporting artist on, that lots of shows, lots of programs, films, including, a recent Netflix hit, Fool Me Once. I mean, you are a fantastic actress in that way, but also, of course, a radio presenter and an author, of course, and we're going to talk about your book shortly. How did then, as you go through those different professional spheres, being neurodivergent, how does that impact on you? Did it help you in some ways, and other ways areas of challenge?
Really good question, because I remember my journey in radio started with BBC Radio Manchester, and that was whilst I was studying for my degree. I remember an email came through from student engagement, and I saw this and I thought, I really want to do this. But I was overwhelmed on it. There's so much information that they wanted from me, and looked at the form, I put it down, looked at it, put it down, and then I finally started doing it and did it bit by bit by bit. When I finally sent it off, I remember sending it off and I thought, I'm not going to hear anything about this. And one day I was in a lecture and I got a phone call, and it was an unknown number. I thought, oh gosh, I'm not answering unknown number. But it's a good thing that I did, because the guy at the other end was like, oh, I'm Lawrence from BBC Radio Manchester, and we want to talk to you about the project that you've applied for. And I had to go for 3 separate interviews. So imagine all the pressure of that as well. I did it and smashed it, went through, and I did the project with them. So that's where the radio started. And then I went on an interview on another local radio, and they said to me, you're so brilliant at communicating, you're so great at this, why don't you get your own show? And I started doing that. Going way back now, from leaving university, going back, I went straight into education as well. So I went to do straight on to do my master's, which was during COVID. Things changed online. So imagine trying to navigate everything online, lectures, everything, all the paper, all the lecture notes and modules, everything was on there. That was a real struggle because it's getting my head around everything. Exams as well, that was thrown in the mix, which I didn't know that was part of the master's because I did ask about it. Because as you know, neurodiverse people don't do well with exams or assessments. It's not one of the best way of testing us. So yeah, and after that, I went, after finishing university and graduating from my master's, I went straight into doing all the advocacy work and what I'm doing now. Yeah.
And do you feel, you know, when you think about the person who said you're a great communicator, do you feel something like that? You think, yeah, that's because I've got dyslexia. Often we are great verbal communicators in that way.
Yeah.
Are you kind of thinking the things that you're really good at, you attribute in part to the fact that you're neurodivergent?
Yeah, definitely. The creativity. I mean, I want to do interviews on the radio. I always get feedback from people and said, you make me feel so comfortable, because I always say to them, it's just a chat. It's not, don't see it as an interview. And people are often nervous about it as well, because they've never done a radio interview and they think that it's so unreachable for them to be on the radio, and it really isn't. So I always make sure that they you know, because our empathy always shines through. So we're always thinking of, you know, how they're feeling and all of those things, and all the creative things that I do. I love the media, all of that.
In part then, based on what you said, was this the inspiration for your book? I know you've got a copy of it somewhere that I'm going to ask you to hold up to the camera, because this is one of my favourite titles, Empowering Dyslexics, Blessed and Gifted. Talk me through, first of all, I mean, that's no mean feat to write a book for any of us. Talk me through then the idea and how you made it happen.
After I got diagnosed, I thought the best way of sharing my story, sharing my journey, and getting everything condensed in one source, you know, accessible source, was to write a book. And that started with my journey from growing up in Jamaica, the trauma that I endured going through school, because of the different schooling system. If you didn't know your maths, you'd get feet in your hand, all of those things. So I thought, I need to put this, and then it's the best way of kind of getting everyone to understand a bit more and create that awareness as well.
When you came up with the title, especially the Blessed and Gifted, did you have pushback where some people who maybe don't know a lot about dyslexia thought, what do you mean blessed and gifted? Was that maybe
definitely
what you were getting? Yeah. So
another thing is superpower. I use the word superpower as well.
Yeah. How do you overcome that barrier, Keisha, where people are saying, what, blessed and gifted? It's all about challenges, isn't it?
Yeah, because I say everyone's journey is unique and everyone's perspective is different, and everyone's experience is different as well. Everyone's lived experience is different. So you may find someone has been diagnosed late, but they have completely different feelings about it, or they may be diagnosed at an early age and they've grown up. And I was speaking to a lady the other day, and she said in the days that they got diagnosed, there was no information about it. Everyone just seen it as a bad thing. There was no championing the greatness of it, and because it's going down to understanding again, and didn't understand what it was and the greatness of being dyslexic.
Yeah. And did that fuel partly your desire to write the book with that title and that message, really?
Definitely, because I wanted to showcase kind of the positive side of it rather than honing on the negative, because you see so many times people think, well, my experience is that, but sometimes it's finding out your strengths, find out the things that you're amazing at, and just honing on those. Don't get hung up on the challenges that you may have once you know, because once you know and you research and you know the greatness of, I mean, for example, statistics show that over 50% of entrepreneurs are dyslexic and neurodiverse in some way or another. So those are the great things that you have to put across for people to understand that it's not a bad thing.
Yeah, and I think that message of hope for our children, Keisha, is really, really important, isn't it? Is it still the case, and I love this as one of your, dreams for the book, is that there's a copy of your book in every school? Is that still one of your ambitions?
That is still the dream, and that's the ambition, and I am onto that with that, because I've also done it in I've recorded it in audio as well.
Oh, fantastic!
Done that, so it's available. I want it to be accessible as much, because being dyslexic, sometimes we can get overwhelmed by reading the book, and we'll start it and we put it down, and you know, we just don't engage as much as we should. But listening, you can be doing, you can be driving, you can be doing whatever, you can still be listening and partaking and accessing it that way.
Yeah. And if folks want to listen to the audiobook or get the hard copy, is it where we normally get our books from, Keisha? Amazon or wherever? Where can we find your wonderful book?
Yeah, I've got a website, and the book is available on there, because I often, Amazon, I sell it at £10 a copy and excluding the postage. However, Amazon sells it at $14.99. And we don't get much back from selling on there, to be fair. Yes. So I sell it, I connect with people through just sending them a link, and they can order it that day, and I'll post the book out.
Are you able to share then on this chat what your website is, where people can reach out and get a copy of this great book?
Can do. Yeah, definitely, I'll do
that. Let us know what that is, Keisha, because for sure, you know, it's.
And what about the audio version?
I've got a link here with both of them on. So I've got a link with both where you can access. You can buy the audio and also the hard copy.
Thank you, Keisha. So is this on your website?
Yeah, it's on my
perfect.
website.
So when you get a chance, let us know during this conversation what that address is, and people can make a note of it. It'd be great to get that, because then they can link with you direct as well.
Yeah.
So definitely. On the back of what you've just shared, how important is you that your lived experience is a role model to others then?
I have children who are also neurodiverse, so it's a mission that's very, very close to my heart in many ways, because you've got to think that generations to come, dyslexia is not going anywhere, and what you notice is it's now more conversations have been held about it. So it's so important to kind of champion it and make sure that everyone understands a bit more about it and awareness, and be able to support others around them, because many people have dyslexic people in their family as well, because as you know, it's a hereditary condition. So once someone has it, chances are it is present somewhere.
Yeah. And did you find your journey as an adult discovering that you were neurodivergent, has that been a different journey than your own children have been on, Keisha?
Yeah, definitely. Being a parent and being able to advocate for them now has been absolutely amazing, because now I know what my journey has been like. So I wanted to ensure, because when I went through the same thing with one of my own child, where I had to go into the school and have a chat with them and talk to them about it, and you know, get that support for her so that she's got that help. Because I know, but there's many parents out there, some people don't, you know, if they don't understand much about it, it can be difficult. It can be a minefield, really, trying to navigate through it.
Yeah. And I guess, you know, the message of your book is one of hope, isn't it? And how important was it for you? And I think I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. How important that was the message of the book, that it is about being, you know, blessed and gifted? How important was it for you that it was so positive in that way?
It was important in the way that I had to kind of champion it, especially for my communities. There's so many, as I said earlier on, so many people who are out there, they're undiagnosed. So championing the greatness, making them understand that you don't need to be ashamed. There's no stigma attached. You don't need to have to remove those stigma. You don't need to be embarrassed about it as well. And the more we can have that conversation about it and talk about it more, that's going to benefit not just now, but all the generations to come.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Keisha. And bearing in mind then that message of hope, we often ask our guests this: have you got any messages directly to folks listening to this, in terms of, you know, wherever they're at with their journey, or if indeed they're worrying about their children, any inspirational thoughts or, you know, words of wisdom you'd like to share?
Yeah, I'll start with children first. A little bit of advice with parents: don't give up on fighting that battle for your child. Do not, you know, whatever it is, it's going to be a long road. You might have to kick off a few doors to get where you need to get to, but it's so important to have that support for them. And it's so important to kind of reinforce to them as well that there's nothing wrong with you. There's absolutely nothing. Once you can find the great things that you're amazing at, just run with those. And message of hope to anyone who's recently diagnosed: find out what your strengths are and just work with all the strengths and the amazing things that you're good at. Sometimes it may be hard to find out what you're good at, but ask people around you. You know, some people see things in others that they may not see themselves. So it's so important. And own who you are, and just be just own it, basically. Just own it and champion the greatness and think that it is something, it's a gift.
Yeah, thank you, Keisha. I love that message. And that's why, you know, when we approached you here at Succeed to be one of our ambassadors, it was a perfect fit, because the messages that you share, and I love that about owning it, is really, you know, a lot of the work that we try to do here at Succeed to inspire our community as well. Before we kind of take any questions as we close down this conversation, I just wondered if Pat or Sue, any questions that you'd like to ask Keisha before we kind of share our contact details. And I'm also going to read out, I know Keisha's put in the chat your website, Keisha, and I'll read that out as well before we say bye-bye to our guests on the recording of this session. But guys from our local associations, I mean, wow, what Keisha shared here is so inspirational. Sue, anything you'd like to share? Sue McKenna.
I would, Keisha, I've read your story on the BDA, Share My Story, which is really inspirational. And as a study skills tutor and now an invigilator and a study skills advisor, my question is, I'm so happy that you were supported well at your university, and that even though it was the end of your degree, they didn't stop. They put that in place.
Just to add as well, Sue, to that point with the university, when I transitioned from doing the degree to the masters, that's when I got the amazing support from Manchester Metropolitan University. They have a support service unit for disability, they call it Disability Support Unit. And I cannot, the same thing, my daughter got diagnosed through them as well when she started her degree. She's now 22 and have graduated with a first class honours in international business and marketing, and she got great support from them all the way through her study. I had the same. I had a support worker, I had all the assistive technology that helped me during my master's. So it's so important once you have that diagnosis and to get that help.
I agree, and I couldn't have had a more honoured time working with my students. A lot of them women who'd returned to study in their 40s after their child had been diagnosed at school, and they realised, oh, do you know what, that's me. But what the question I had for you, Keisha, you got the assistive technology, you got the extra time in the exams, and you had your personal learning plan. Do you think that you knew then how to study better? Or did did you get one-to-one support? How did it work?
Brilliant question, because what I was struggling with in the classroom as being a dyslexic is one of the worst things we can have is when during a lecture you have to be copying from the board.
Yeah.
And I remember back in my degree, and the lecturer would say, oh, is everyone finished? Can we move on now? And I always say yes, even though I've not finished. You know, so when I was doing the transition to do my master's, I had it was a package called Sanocent. So what I did, I had my slides there, I had all the information, and then it was able to record slide by slide as a lecture goes through. And then I have all that recording, and I'll be able to go back to it and be able to make my notes in my own time rather than having that pressure. I had a support worker, April. She was absolutely amazing. Both myself and my daughter had the same support worker, funny enough. And she helped me in so many ways where I'd write stuff, because one of the issues that I always have is comprehending it, writing it in a way that it should sound academically. And spending 17 years in the corporate world and going over to do the master's, it was, yeah. And she was there all the way through, and she helped me, and it was a game changer for me. And all the other stuff where I was able to access assistive technology in workplace. And what was funny as well is there was other people in my lecture that would have their laptop and doing the same thing as well. So that was really good to see also. Yeah, it's very encouraging.
That's great. And tell you what I love about listening to you tonight is we've heard about how important Leslie was, and how important Anne was, and how important April was. And those individuals have had a life-changing experience. And I don't know whether you're familiar with Jay Blades and his journey.
Oh yeah, I've interviewed him. Yeah, I've interviewed him on
well, his book says he phoned up the university, was it Bedfordshire, and he said, I've got no GCSEs, I've got no education, but I want a degree. And the person on the end of the phone listened and got him onto the Access course. And so I think it's a lesson for everybody in society that every time somebody speaks, we must listen and see what's below perhaps the words. So I'm really pleased to hear that, because I thought the DSA brought so much support to many people. So you've learned how to study, and it's also April's still there.
Yeah, April is she's a massive part of my life, April, because she's just so helpful in everything, and she really understood me, and she understood what my needs were. That's so important, you know. She worked with me on an individual basis as a person, rather than thinking that's the right fit for us.
Yeah, I think we all, perhaps everybody in this role, we relate to that, because, you know, the thanks and the Christmas cards and the being invited to the christening and all of that, you become a part of somebody's life and their journey. So that was my question, Donna. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. It's that people to people support, isn't it? I know we talk a lot about technology. It really has a great role to play, but you can't beat that human to human contact, people who make a difference for us and really show up for our community. Great question, Sue. Sue and Pat, before we round up this part, any questions or comments from you guys?
Yes, please. When will you come over and talk to our people? We don't have many people.
Anytime you're ready.
I'll keep your details.
Whenever you're ready. I normally do speak in university. I've done like Manchester Metropolitan. I've done Liverpool as well, Liverpool John Moores, and I love because the more we can have this conversation everywhere is so, and the feedback you get when you know I've gone into big corporate companies as well and spoke for them, and the feedback, and it still keeps coming. It still keeps coming back, because once you know you're sharing your story and you're authentically sharing it, it just has a massive impact on everyone.
But your passion comes over as well, and that's what people need to hear. My one question is, since you found out you're dyslexic, how many people have you met that are dyslexic?
They are absolutely everywhere. I'll tell you a funny story. And I tend to be drawn to them as well. So the work that I do on Hollyoaks, I connected with a lady. We're talking, and she's been in the acting industry for years, and I needed a mentor. So we had a call, and we're talking and everything. And afterwards, you know, we got talking about my book, and she was like, "Oh, I'm also dyslexic." And I get that every time I go on set and I talk. And as soon as I say, "Oh, I'm this," and I've met so many in the creative world that are dyslexics as well. And it's just sometimes it's really refreshing to say that they own it and they really understand it, and it makes such a massive difference. So that's why it's the importance of sharing it, and the awareness, bringing that awareness so that people can understand more is paramount in everything that we do.
So
brilliant, thanks Keisha, and a great question, Pat. And this is why we wanted to put together this platform, isn't it, guys, in order to showcase these conversations, really. Sue, any questions from you guys at Adult Dyslexia Centre to Keisha?
Well, I have quite a few actually, but I know time's running out. I'll save them. But I just think you're really inspirational. Thanks very much for coming and sharing this. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
brilliant. Could I come back just quickly? Because I think part of your journey is a cultural barrier, and and knowing families where there is either a mixed race or somebody who is from the Caribbean or from India, whatever. Where does the cultural barrier fit in your dyslexic journey?
The cultural barrier is the way that I grew up in Jamaica, in a place where I didn't even know how to spell dyslexia, let alone knowing what it was at the time. And because sometimes in certain cultures, there's a lot of pressure that's put on the children to kind of to achieve. So
absolutely.
They have high achievement. They want them doctors, lawyers, and those are the big things. So to speak to a parent and say, you know what, I think your child may be struggling in this area, it's a massive denial. It's a massive thing to say, oh, there's nothing wrong with my child. I tell you a quick little story. My cousin, she does childcare, and she has a lot of children, and she was spotting quite a lot of things going on with the children. She reached out to me a few times and said she's actually lost children coming to her care because she's highlighted something to the parent. And because of the denial, they just totally take a child away because how dare you tell me that there's something. So that is what we try. I've always been on that mission to break down that barrier that's there. And it's a massive barrier, really.
And are you making a difference, do you think, Keisha?
Massively, because I've gone in and I've spoken to her her parents. We've had Zoom. I remember doing it. I was on set filming that day, and I had to take myself away from filming and jump onto this Zoom and talk to all the parents, and the feedback was absolutely tremendous because they didn't understand the logic of being dyslexic. They didn't understand the greatness, and to kind of open up and show them that this is me and this is what I'm doing. I'm a Black woman, came from Jamaica at the age of 14, gone through the education system. I have so many layers, intersectional layers that I can actually jump back on. Being a mom that's undiagnosed as well, that's a massive thing because I didn't know that my daughter, been bullied, all of that. My daughter struggled when she was struggling in school. I didn't know how to help her because I was having my own struggles. So those are the things that I always put across to say that once you find your feet, you'll be okay.
That's great to know. Thank you. And it really is that barrier of, I don't know what it is, but what you're saying is my child is not perfect. So I don't want to hear you. Okay,
definitely.
Thank you.
Definitely.
Thanks,
and
Donna.
Keisha, that's okay, Sue. Again, it's really interesting to hear these issues. And Keisha, I guess this comes back to the title of the book, isn't it? To reassure folks, you know, blessed and gifted. This is not something to be scared of. There's lots of gifts there. And again, breaking down maybe some of that fear factor around, you know, realizing that you're neurodivergent as an adult or a child, or, you know, a parent of your child. So thank you for all the work that you do. I mean, you've got an invite to Yorkshire on the back of this, and also I'm sure when people are listening to this recording,
and you're welcome.
I think you're going to be a busy lady.
I'm everywhere. I'm coming everywhere. I'm coming to Poole, Hampshire, Yorkshire, wherever. I'm there.
Love it. Well, thank you. You know, we understand why you're getting these invites because you're brilliant, and you've shared in the chat. And I know not everyone will be able to see this, especially those listening on the recording. But what we'll do is we'll share it into the YouTube video, so it'll be underneath. But I will read out. We've got so basically Googling Empowering Dyslexic StumUpStore.com. I think that's where you can find the book. But the audio is a little bit longer, the link, and we'll add it into our YouTube link on the recording. Okay, so that just leaves me to say a huge thank you, Keisha. What I'm going to do now, guys, as we always do as we turn towards stopping the recording, is I'm going to share the contact details for and so let me just, this is the bit I absolutely hate because talking and trying to sort out technology is not my strength. So let me make sure I get this right. Hopefully I'm sharing. And there we go. I always get there in the end. There we have ADC's helpline details, Yorkshire Rose Dyslexia Association helpline details, Hampshire, and our contact details here at Succeed with Dyslexia. So, you know, the reason we have a platform in this way and we have these wonderful guests like Keisha, who we can't thank enough, is because we want to make sure that our community understands that you are not alone. And one of the ways that we can show up for you, and we've talked tonight about that people-to-people contact, is by the wonderful work that ADC, Yorkshire Rose and Hampshire Dyslexia Association do through their helplines. So thank you so much, everybody. Please do keep in touch with us, and we will see you again on our next session. Let's keep talking, and thank you, Keisha, once again. Brilliant.
You're welcome. And anyone want to reach out to me, please feel free. LinkedIn is my place. Connect with me there if you have any questions that you want to take offline.
Brilliant. Thank you, Keisha. So LinkedIn is the place to go to reach out to you as well. Thank you. Bye, everyone. Until next time. Take care.